Elliott Wald, addiction specialist. Come clean with me.
Hello, I'm Elliott Wald, addiction specialist, and welcome to another episode of Coming Clean with Me. Today, my guest is Brian Cuban. Brian is a former personal injury attorney, an author, a public speaker, a mental health and addiction recovery advocate. He's an authority on male eating disorders, including bulimia, body dysmorphic disorder, cocaine and alcohol addiction, having first-hand experience of being afflicted by these for decades, until he began his journey of recovery and sobriety in 2007. Welcome, Brian, and thank you for joining me here today.
It's a pleasure, Elliott. Thanks for having me on.
Fantastic. So being a lawyer, let's just jump straight in. Being a lawyer, because, I always say this to people, Brian, it doesn't discriminate cocaine. In other words, it doesn't matter whether you're a warehouse worker, whether you're a lawyer, pediatrician, a surgeon, a judge. I've seen them all. There's no discrepancy, is there?
No, there is not. I mean, nostrils don't discriminate either, right? The first line up the nostril, or however you ingest, is the same, no matter what background you come from, no matter what your trauma is. But I also like to add that in terms of demographics, well, addiction does not discriminate. It does hit different demographics, just disproportionately. So we should be careful of that.
Yes, that's true. But so tell me about your own journey. How did your journey into addiction begin?
Well, it began, we have to go all the way back. I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm a boomer, born in 1961.
Okay, boomer. Yeah.
Baby boomer, born in 1961. Yeah, if I use any English, American slang, let me
I will. Go on.
So, and I'm the middle of three boys. And this is all important because a lot of people, in my anecdotal experience, have used cocaine to hide trauma, hide childhood trauma, hide different types of trauma. And for me, that was the adverse childhood experiences were very important. So it's important that your listeners know, how that all began, right? What caused that need to change who I was and see a different person in the mirror with that first line of cocaine.
Yeah.
That took over my life. So I'm in the middle of three boys. I have an older brother, Mark, and your listeners may or may not know him if they're primarily in the UK. He owns.
We have Shark Tank in the UK, so I know who your brother.
Okay, yeah, he's on Shark Tank, and he owns the NBA basketball team, the Dallas Mavericks. And I have a younger brother, Jeff, and Mark as the further.
What does Jeff do?
Jeff works for Mark.
Okay,
so I'm not in the family business. Jeff is.
Okay.
So. Mark is the firstborn, he was outgoing, entrepreneurial, selling this door to door, selling that door to door. I remember when our local newspapers went on strike, he, back in the 70s, he and his buddies, barely old enough to drive, drove out to a state about 100 miles away and bought their newspapers and drove them back to our state and sold them. So that's the kind of guy he was, right?
Got it.
He made money. Jeff was an athlete, outgoing, the beer parties, the dates, the prom, all of those things, very popular, very popular. I was classic middle child syndrome. I was shy, I was withdrawn, and I internalized anything negative said to me and about me and wore it as kind of who I was, like a skin-tight suit. And unfortunately, I had a difficult relationship with my mom. I'll you listeners a little bit about this, but I want to make it clear to everyone that I do not blame my mother for the things I went through. Parents do not cause addiction. Parents do not cause eating disorders. There is a difference between cause and correlation. And so, but things that happen in the home and that can correlate with mental health issues later in life. It'll happen to some, it won't happen to others, right? Who go through the same experience. That's why it's correlation and not cause. There was a lot of fat shaming in my household. My mother I used to come home from school, and I was a heavy kid bordering on obese. There was a lot of fat. I used to come home from school. I'd go into the cupboard, and do they have Chef Boyardee ravioli in the UK? I'd open up SpaghettiOs or beefaroni, the canned food. And we didn't have a microwave. And my mom would come home from selling real estate, and she would walk into the kitchen and say, Brian, if you keep eating that way, you're going to be a fat pig. Now, these were the things my grandmother said to my mom. These were the things I'm sure my great grandmother, and in her own way, said to my grandmother. I come from an Eastern European Jewish family from Lithuania. My mom's were from Romania and Lithuania, and they were poor, and there was a very dysfunctional relationship around the food. So I had a very stereotypical Jewish grandmother: eat, 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 and everything revolved around food. And my mother had a very mentally and verbally abusive relationship with her mother, who was diagnosed schizophrenic. And it was very ugly. And these kind of things rolled downhill, especially in that time period where a woman could talk about her own mental health issues, of which my mother had a lot, right? It was very stigmatized for women. It is today still, but back then it was exponentially worse. It was just under the radar. But not understanding this and hearing these things from my mother, who was dealing with her own mental health battles, I grew depressed. And I began to eat more ravioli and more and more and more and more spaghetti. And I grew to be a bigger Brian and a bigger...
You were dealing with your emotions through internally by externally eating.
Correct, which is not uncommon.
Yeah.
And for kids or for adults. And so, and as I got heavier and quote unquote fat, as I was, as we hear, and the what happens when kids change for what other kids perceive in the negative is high school, the bullying started, right? You're a fat pig. Well, you must have talked to my mom. Brian, you need to go and get a bra for your man boobs, and all of these things. And I internalized that as well, because I didn't want the kids to know how bad it hurt. You have to remember, this was before the internet, decades before the internet. My visions of popularity weren't TikTok and Instagram and, all the airbrushed images, right? Before we put our pictures out there, we smooth our faces.
Yeah.
My images were the kids I saw every day.
Raw reality.
Yes. The kids who were going to the football games, the kids who had dates, the kids who were going to the prom, the kids who were walking down the high school between the aisle between the lockers, the old checkered floor, holding hands, getting their first kiss. All the things that I wanted so badly but was too afraid to ask for, because in my mind I projected out what my mother said and what these bullies said: you're a fat pig. And this all culminated one day in what I call the day of the gold pants. Do you remember the disco era?
Yes, certainly do.
Yes, so there was a movie called Saturday Night Fever.
Sure.
1970.
Sure, Bolton.
That's right, 1976. And my brother Mark, and I was a freshman in high school, and my brother Mark taught disco in downtown, and he always came home with the platform shoes and the flowered pants, right, the bell bottoms, as we remember from that era, which some of your millennials and Gen Z and younger probably won't remember. But it was very popular. And so Mark came home, and one day he came home and walked into my room, and he had a pair of shiny gold satin bell-bottom disco pants he was holding in his hand. And he said, "Brian, these are for you. I'm getting new ones." And I was so excited. I was so happy. I love my brother dearly. We're very close today, all three of us. And he gave me these pants, and I decided I was going to wear them to school. But Mark wasn't a big guy. They fit him fine. I had to jump up and down. I had to spray the water bottle. My butt looked like 15 cats trying to get out, but I didn't care. I got into these pants. I wore them to school. My stomach came out. And as you might expect, kids make fun of me. But these were, again, in my mind, the popular kids. The kids who were making fun of me were the ones I wanted to be like. So I sort of hung around them and just self-deprecated. Yeah, I'm so fat, I know. And I became the sad clown, the self-deprecating clown. And I'm walking home from school with these kids one day, and it was about a mile walk from the school to my house. And it's this sidewalk along a busy street with cars just whizzing by. And we're walking down the sidewalk, and I'm wearing my shiny gold bell-bottom disco pants. The kids are making fun of them. All of a sudden, one pulls at the zipper, and it rips a little bit right at the zipper.
Oh.
And Another kid pulls along the seam, and it rips some more. And Elliott, the next thing I knew, it was like a pack of wild dogs on me. This group of kids physically assaulted me. They ripped off my pants that my brother had given me down to my underwear. And as we call them in the States, my tighty whities. And they threw the shreds in the street. It walked down, high-fiving, like they and laughing like they had done the funniest thing ever.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in my underwear and a T-shirt and tennis shoes and my white socks. And I had to wait for traffic because it was a busy street. I go out in the street and I pick them up and I cover up my privates in my underwear, just down my hands over my groin. And I waddle home, cars just going, people going, hey, but no one stopped. And I'll tell you, the worst part of that walk of shame was the intersections with the stoplights, because I had to stop and wait for traffic so I could cross. And every stoplight felt like it was a year.
Forever.
With people looking, but no one bothered to ask me what was wrong and what had happened. I got home and the house was empty. It was funeral silent. And do they have basements in the UK? I walked down into my basement, go down underground. And as I walked down these wooden stairs, it was these blue-painted wooden stairs. They creaked, and I remember as I went down these stairs, because it was an older house, every creak of that wood, I felt like it was ripples on the water, reverberating out to my mother, who was selling real estate. See, I told you so. Reverberating to my father, who fixed cars a mile away. That you can't stand up for yourself. Reverberating out to my brothers, who would say the same thing. And of course, none of them would have said that. They would have all been angry, not at me, at the kids who had done it. But in my mind, the mind of a high school freshman, that's what they were going to say to me. And I deserved it for not standing up to them, for allowing it to happen. So I took those shreds and I found the garbage can and I buried those shreds under newspapers and garbage, hoping that I would bury my shame and bury my trauma. But that's not how it works. Trauma threads, trauma remembers. And it has a way of coming out in our adult life when we least expect it, if not dealt with.
Yeah.
It was that moment when we talk about snapshots in our lives, Elliott, that, played a role going down in mental health dysfunction. It was that moment where I remember as a young man, a young boy, teenager, looking in the mirror for the first time, whether it was a mirror, whether it was a poverty section, whether it was a mall window, and seeing an ugly fat pig monster who was never going to be loved by his mother, who loved me dearly, but just dealing with her own crap, who was never going to get married, never going to get his first kiss, never be deserving of anything good in his life. A tough mindset when you're 15 years old, to develop that mindset already at such a young age. And that was the beginning. You want to talk about the beginning. That was
it. Okay. And then that trauma, which was there inside of you, of all these years of this self-loathing and self-hate, for want of a better word, at what point did you find that escape of drinking alcohol and using cocaine?
The alcohol began when I was a freshman in college. I went to a college here in Pennsylvania called Penn State University.
How old is that?
That was at 18.
Okay, got it. Yeah,
18. I had drank in high school, but it really didn't accelerate until I was in college. And the drinking age was 21, but you find ways to drink. And I'd also developed the eating disorder. I developed bulimia. And I drank so I didn't have to feel, so I didn't have to remember the trauma.
Escape.
Yeah, I drank to escape. And I went on to law school, and I continued to drink to escape. And as you might imagine, it's very difficult to be a good student, and I wasn't, because I was drinking all the time rather than studying. And then I finished law school, but I was able to make it through law school, not as just barely. and I moved from one state to another, from Pennsylvania to Texas. It's about a 1,200-mile journey.
Is that where your family lived, Texas?
No, my family lived in Pittsburgh, but in Pennsylvania. But at that
Your brother lives in Texas now, right?
yes, when I graduated law school in Pennsylvania, both my brothers had already moved to Texas, a city, Dallas, Texas.
Got it.
So I took a bus to Dallas, Texas, because I felt I could be with the people who didn't judge me, the only people in my life who I knew loved me.
Safe place.
A safe place. I could be in a safe place. And it was like throwing gasoline on a fire, Elliott, because they didn't know what I was going through. They're young. This was the mid-'80s. They're out drinking. They weren't doing drugs to my knowledge, but, we'd go out and I drank even more and more. And then in 1987, in a bathroom of a nightclub, I did my first line of cocaine.
In 1987, you were how old?
I was 26.
Okay, got it. 26. Go on.
I was 26, and I did my first line of cocaine. Another buddy who I was out partying with said, I have, you want to try this? He was big into it. He was a big sniffer. And he said, you want to try this? It'll make you feel good. You won't believe it. And he found his dealer was in the club. So his dealer gave me a free sample. Oh, so we go down to the bathroom, and his dealer gave me, go down to the bathroom, close, just go in the stall. And I bent over that stall, put it on this, dumped it out
on the system,
on the toilet. And it's kind of funny. Aren't cocaine users an ironic bunch, especially with the going in and out of the pandemic? You'll wash your hands. You have to dress.
That's actually where you were going with that,
right? But we'll bend over a toilet that we'll bend over a toilet has God knows what on it, and stick a dollar bill up our nose that's been used by who knows who.
You even toss the dollar bill around to other people.
That's right. Go figure, right? Go figure. And wash our hands, but we'll do that.
Yeah.
And that's addiction. But
and then from that one time, Brian, how long before it escalated?
The mental aspect was instantaneous.
Oh.
I walked out of that bathroom and looked in the mirror, and for the first time in my 26 years, didn't hate myself. I loved the person I saw in that mirror. That person was cool. That person was worthy of dating. I was going to go upstairs where all the women were hanging out, and I was cool Brian, right? And I was ready.
Yeah.
But then it wore off. And then I was shy Brian. Then I was ashamed Brian. And then I felt like crap, because it wore off, and I was starting to feel kind of jerky. And so where's the dealer? I got to love myself again.
You got to repeat the process.
I found the dealer. I gave him my last $100. He gave me $1,000, what it cost back then, and went back to that bathroom and loved Brian again and again and again and again. Cocaine took over my life.
That's what happens.
And then I became psychologically, and of course, I would eventually become physically dependent on it as well. And then, move into addiction, where I was willing to do anything I had to whether it was, any illegal means to get the drug,
Over what period of time did you have that cocaine addiction? How long did that last for in your life?
That lasted until really 2007.
So from the age of 26 to
40, really 47, 46 or 47.
So 21 years, 21 years, roughly.
Yeah.
Yeah. At your height, how frequently were you using?
At my height, I might go through 3 8 balls a week.
Wow.
If you know what an 8 3.
Yeah, I know an 8 balls. Yeah.
So it wasn't a matter of was I thinking every day. It was a matter I'd get it and I'd do it. I have none left. So I wasn't, it wasn't like, can I say that I did it every single day? No, but I could say when it was empty, I'd get some more. And when I could get a hold of my dealer, I'd do it and go through, right?
But you had a very all or nothing mentality. In other words, however much you had, it wasn't years until it's gone.
Exactly. Let me give you a great example of how the insanity was. Are you familiar with the NBA?
Yes, basketball. Yeah, I don't know about players. I know what NBA is.
Okay, so my brother Mark bought the Dallas Mavericks. It's our Dallas, Texas team in 2000 in the year 2000. In the year 2006, we went to our championship for the very first time. Right, we were going to get the trophy. We were going for the big trophy, and so Mark had also owned a piece of the arena we played in. And so, as you might imagine, I get seats for those games, right? My brother owns the job.
Why not?
I called him up. I got a couple of really good seats, and I told him I need 2 more to give to friends. I didn't give them to my friends. I didn't sell them on eBay. I sold them. I traded them to my cocaine dealer for over $2,000 in cocaine.
Did your brother know this after?
Not for 10 years when I finally fessed up, and they ran a big story about it in a paper. So my dealer shows up at my house, and he gives me the tickets. I give him the tickets, and he gives me this giant baggie of raw cocaine. And I go upstairs, and I'm smashing it out, right? And great. I get the spaghetti grater.
Yeah, the ritual. That's right. I mean, how many graters, strainers did I go through in my life? I'm out. Oh, we have tea strainers in the UK, like for making English tea.
Yeah.
And that's what we use.
Yeah, if you push it in there and use the spoon and it comes out as a powder. I don't know how many of them I went through and for that purpose. And so I get it all powdered out, and I did a couple lines, and then I got all panicky. At this point, maybe there was some amphetamines in there mixed with some different things, but I got all panicked, and I got all paranoid. And all this, it got in my head that the cops were coming and I was going to go to prison. This whole mentality. So
paranoia.
Oh, yes. And again, there could have been other stuff mixed in that caused a lot of this reaction. But so I hid the cocaine and I drove to a hardware store where I bought these electrical faceplate outlets, to plug in. And I bought a drill and a saw, and I went back home and I created these fake electrical outlets in the drywall.
One second. Were you on it when you were doing this?
Yes.
So you were off your tits, as we sound to you.
Absolutely.
Right, to do this because you're paranoid that you think something's going to happen.
Absolutely. So I'm cutting out these electrical outlets in the drywall of the different bedrooms in my house, and I put the cocaine in these smaller Ziploc baggies, and I slap it behind the drywall, and I and I drill up the face plates, thinking I'm the smartest lawyer ever. Like the cops have never thought of that one before. And the drug dogs, right? They don't know that one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'm safe now. So I line out a couple more lines, and again, the paranoia was just overwhelming. It was about 2 hours later. I went back to those same electrical outlets, took the cocaine out, and flushed it down the toilet.
But it was Trump. Yeah, I think when you use long term, the paranoia just becomes after like 3 or 4 lines. The paranoia is there. You're looking on CCTV camera. You're thinking someone's going to come to your house. It's crazy, right?
Absolutely. And I was also but you remember that great high from the first time, right? So I'm facing that great high. So it's not long term. I just need a different dealer. You keep searching for that cut, right? That's never going to come again. That feeling that's never going to come again.
You're never going to get what you had for the first 12 months of using, right?
That's right.
That's gone.
But you keep searching. Well, maybe I need to change. Maybe I need to drink a different alcohol with it. Maybe I need to do this. Maybe I need to do that. But it never works.
You're right. You're always looking, I'll use less. I'll use it longer periods between doing lines. I'll watch this first. I'll do this differently. You're always trying to rationalize, always.
Absolutely. You're trying to be like this evil chemist, right? This evil chemist trying to figure it all out when it's just your brain's been drastically rewired. So the next morning comes. I wake up and I'm thinking, shit, I flushed all my cocaine down the toilet. What idiot does that? And so there was another game that night. So I called my brother again. I got 2 more tickets. I called my drug dealer again. He shows up at my house. He said, dude, you did all that last night? I didn't want to tell him I flushed it down the toilet like an idiot. So I said, yes, I did it all, which was really no big deal for me to do that. And that's cocaine. There was no such thing for me as lasting through the week. Right.
Yeah.
Like you said, it was all or nothing.
All or nothing.
All or nothing. But in my mind, when I got it, you say it's going to last through the week. Right.
I'm going to buy a larger quantity to save myself money or sustainably drive calling the dealer back. But no matter how much you go, it's gone.
It's gone. It's gone. Whether it's a day or a day and a half, it's gone.
Exactly.
And you're up for 2 days straight, and it's gone. So he gives me the cocaine, and I give him the tickets again. It was rinse, wash, repeat. I run up to I had a home office and dump it out on the desk, line out a couple more lines, hide it again behind those same electrical outlets. Then later that night, I get all paranoid again. And for the second night in a row, I went to that same toilet, dropped to my knees, and flushed it again. They talk about the insanity of addiction, doing the same thing, same way over and over and expecting a different result.
Yes.
Not insane. It's a biological process that
100%. But there's an insanity to the actual belief that it's going to be different, even though that's not. And you're there doing 3 lines with a paranoia, and then you promise yourself on the come down that you're never going to do it again. And then 24 hours, 40 hours later, you're repeating the process.
Absolutely. As soon as that feeling gets in the rearview mirror, you're making that call again. And, back in my day, it was only calls or no texts or anything.
Yeah.
But, and so that kind of epitomized how cocaine took over my life and what it did to me. And then if in the summer of 2005, if we want to back up a little bit, I became so despondent that this would never, that my life would never be different, that I would never love myself without the aid of, being able to do this, that I decided to end my life by suicide. And I sent a very disturbing email to a friend who called my brothers. And before I knew it, my younger brother was in my house. Mark was in Los Angeles, so he flew in back to Dallas. And my brother walked in. There was a .45 automatic on my nightstand. There was cocaine everywhere, and Xanax, too. I was cocaining through the night and Xanaxing, and
you're trying to level off to come down to go back up.
That's right, which makes it a problem to practice law, right?
Yeah. I mean, you think straight.
You can't. I've shown up at the courthouse under the influence. I've done cocaine in the courthouse bathrooms. It didn't matter.
Yeah. I've got a client I helped about 3 years ago, and he's a judge at the Old Bailey, which in the UK is probably like the biggest courthouse, like the most serious problems. And he used to say to me, he would go back in his room, do a line, come out before he sentenced people.
Absolutely.
It's just pervasive.
I've been under the influence of cocaine in front of judges and barristers, you call them barristers and solicitors there, right?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Yes. But, and people ask me when I tell my story, didn't you know that was wrong? Didn't you know you can go to jail? And I said, yes, I wasn't an idiot. I was addicted.
Listen,
which doesn't mean you're an idiot.
No. Addiction means you can see the problem, but unfortunately you can't change it.
That's right. That's right. And so my brothers took me to a psychiatric hospital. My first of 2 trips to a psychiatric hospital. And I was angry. I was combative. And in our state, where I live, in order to be committed to a psychiatric hospital, the doctor has to believe you are a danger to yourself or others.
Yeah.
So I was sort of getting the gist that they were trying to commit me, so I knew what to say, much to their chagrin. So they were unable to commit. So they drove me back to my house, and they took my car keys, and they said, just stay here and sober up, and everything's going to be okay. My family didn't know any different, right? They didn't understand addiction. And you know what my thought to that was, Elliott? No problem, my drug dealer delivers. Right?
Yeah.
I have home delivery. This is no problem whatsoever. And that's the way it was. And my solution wasn't to go to treatment, rehab, or go to 12-step. My solution was to distance from my family. So I would no longer see my brothers, my father, I would no longer see my nieces and nephews. I would not let them see that I was wound up all the time under the influence. That was my solution.
I think that's common because it's a narrowing of your life.
That's
So
it.
it become you and your usage, right?
That's right. And I was going to hang out only with the people who didn't judge me, at least until the cocaine is gone, right?
Yes.
Until they want more, because I was always buying. And then that's what I did. And so my career as a lawyer imploded. I was literally, if not for my brother, and for the privilege that I enjoy, and that's important to acknowledge to your listeners, that I've enjoyed a lot of privilege in my life, in both addiction. Addiction doesn't discriminate, but I had a billionaire and have a billionaire brother who didn't want to see me living under a bridge and didn't want to see me end my life by suicide. And people don't that is this many people who have that privilege.
Sure.
So it would be disingenuous of me not to acknowledge that.
But you're also extremely close to your brothers, as you said, and especially to Mark, right? You're all thumbs.
Walking distance to each other here. That's not inaccurate.
Yeah,
it's not inaccurate.
Yeah.
So
you're distancing yourself from everybody around you. You're using on your own or with people that you're paying to use with you. You're masking the problem, not having to come to terms with it.
That's right.
And until eventually what?
In 2006, I met a girl. We started dating, and I was able to, for a time, successfully hide my problem from her. And
you were a secret user to her.
Yes. And we moved in together. And I remember when we moved in together, a buddy of mine said, she doesn't do what you do. And you do what you do. How's that going to work? And I said to him, well, I'm going to stop. I need to stop. So I'm starting to think about it, right? The first thing to change. I'm starting to think about it.
But interesting, Brian, just to interrupt you. Interesting, you're starting to think about it because the things that you didn't believe possible you could have in your life, as in someone wanting me, loving me, caring for me, finding me attractive, has suddenly manifested itself.
Well, yeah, again, right? Because I'd already been divorced 3 times. And and none of those marriages lasted for more than 2 years, and they all failed because of my drug and alcohol use. Okay? So, but this was going to be different, right? We tell her, this one's going to be different. I'm going to stop. And so, but I didn't. Addiction doesn't work that way either.
Yeah.
Well, we moved in together, and I know she started to suspect stuff. And she went away for the weekend, and it was Easter weekend 2007. She's going away for the weekend to visit her parents. I say, okay,
what's coming? Opportunity knocks.
Opportunity knocks. I'm going to go out with a buddy of mine. It was a bachelor party. I'm going to go out with a buddy of mine, and I'm going to party. And by the time she gets home on Sunday, this was Friday, by the time she gets home on Sunday, I'll be showered. Everything's going to be good.
She'll be none the wiser.
Well, what happened was I blacked out. I had a 2-day blackout in bed. And she comes home. It is Sunday evening. I'm in bed. I open my eyes. There's cocaine everywhere. There's alcohol, all that. She's looking down at me. She's a lawyer as well. I mean, she's not one. And I'm looking around, figuring out how I can explain this orgy of evidence that I might not be the person I represented myself to be. And she's looking around, wondering probably if she walked in the right house. And all I could think of was kind of a running home to mama. I told her to take me back to this same psychiatric facility I'd been to in 2005. She didn't know about that either. And so, but my thought process was, by the time we get down there, I'll have a better lot. And we get down there, and I'm standing in the parking lot for the second time in my life of this parking lot of the psychiatric hospital. She's crying, and I'm thinking she's going to leave me. Elliott, she stood by me. We dated for over a decade while I rebuilt the broken trust. She moved out, but we stayed. I rebuilt the broken trust and found recovery, and now we've been together over 18 years. So not all relationships will work out that way, but ours was able to because she's a saint, and plus I had to do the work for me, right? Not for her, not for my pets, not for my parents, because trauma and grief and all of these things happen, in recovery, and they can't be a trigger for relapse. And so, but this wasn't then. So we're down there, and I decided it was time in that parking lot I realized it wouldn't be a third trip back. I'd be getting to that psychiatric hospital. So the next day, April 8th, I walked into my psychiatrist's office. I was seeing a counselor who I've been lying to. And, well, people, why would you lie to your counselor? Well, I was ashamed. Shane knows no hourly rate, right? It didn't matter.
No, you know, Brian, I think there's a thing about us people who got an addiction that we lie. We lie because even when we use it, right, we lie about the frequency, the quantity. We lie to our friends. We lie to other users. We just lie to ourselves because we are in denial until you reach that point where something happens in your life, thank God, and you wake up, which is what you're saying.
Yes. And I have many friends who you hope people reach that point before they die. And I have many friends who are up below ground because, that they never did. They never had that realization, or they weren't able to act on it when they had it. And just backslid into, beat the behavior. But fortunately for me, for whatever reason, so my counselor tried to get me into treatment, right? Or the U.S. version, we have them. You may call it that there.
Yeah, we call it there. Yeah, same thing.
But I refused to go because my ego was still up here. I was this lawyer who had no clients left. At this point, my brother's supporting me because and that's privilege again. And so he said, "Would you consider going to 12-step?" And 12-step, I'm sure that you have the same there.
We have yeah.
I don't know if it says popular because you have the public health there, right?
So in the UK, we have public health, but public health does have no facility to deal with addictions at all. We have AA, CA, other meetings that you can go to that are free, drop in. And I think for some people it's great. I'm a great advocate of, I think certain things work for certain people, certain things aren't right for other people. But I think you've got to go for some support and some sort of follow-up. And I think you have to try different things.
If you've looked at what things I say, I'm a massive advocate of multiple pathways to recovery.
Yeah, I'd read that.
But at the time, this was a different time. I was only given two options because my counselor only knew two things. You were either in rehab or you were in AA or NA. We call it NA here for number.
Yeah, we have that both. We have both.
Yeah, so those were the only two options I'm given. Well, and I said, well, I'll go to AA because alcohol was also a problem, and so because if I go to AA, I can stay around, and and I had this fear of just leaving my comfort zone. So I walked into the rooms of AA, April 8, 2007, and I sat down. And my thought process when I sat down and I was crying and I smelled, and I sat in the corner and I'm hovering, right, and listening to people tell their stories. And my thought process wasn't that I was an addict or alcoholic. My thought process was that if sitting in this chair will give me the tools that for the first time in my life, now the first time in my 40 plus years, will allow me to wake up in the morning, walk to the bathroom mirror naked, and look at myself and love myself for the first time in my life without cocaine or alcohol, I'll sit. That was my thought process. I just wanted to love myself, Elliott. I wanted so badly.
Yeah.
Because it was the inability to love myself over 4 decades that kept me going, right? This next line is going to be the one, even though I was also arrested for driving under the influence, even though I've 3 failed marriages, arrested, 2 trips to a psychiatric facility. And this next line is going to allow me to love myself, despite all that. The next line, if sitting in this chair will allow me to do that without the lines, without the drink, I'll sit. And I did. And I sat, and I'm still in counseling today. And I also take antidepressants because I suffer from depression separate from the addiction. They are often intertwined, but not separately. And in April, I'll have 18 years in long-term recovery. I'm sorry, 17. I'm getting old. I can't remember my old hiding this.
Congratulations. That's a massive accomplishment. I just want to ask you a couple of questions because I do a lot of research on all my guests before I interview my guests. And I read a lot of things and listened to a few things. You really emphasize the importance of support in recovery. And your family and your brothers particularly, they played an active role. You want to tell me about that?
Yes, we're very close. And it's generational. My father was the middle of three boys like me. He had a very close relationship with his two brothers. I mean, this was the greatest generation. My father fought in World War II in the Pacific, as did his older brother, and they were very close. And he used to say to Mark, Jeff, and I, growing up, he'd say, guys, no matter what happens in your life, you have to stick together. No matter what quibbles you have, no matter what beefs, you have to stick together. You tell your brother you love him. Make sure your brother is okay, because this is what he learned about his relationship with his two. Even though it's not always sunshine, right? You fight with your brothers. He and his little brother, they worked together in a car shop, fixing cars. They had their beefs, and but it was that gift that brought us close. That has kept my brothers and I so close. The gift of family. That is a privilege, Elliott. It is a privilege, because a lot of people going through addiction, they come from estranged families. They don't speak with their siblings, their parents, or their children, their spouses. There could be incarceration involved. Broken families, and so to have this is absolutely a privilege, and I acknowledge that. And that is why I said it's no accident that we live walking distance to each other today.
Yeah. Interesting. The first book you wrote was in 2017, The Addicted Lawyer, Tales of the Bar, Booze, Bloat, and Redemption. I wonder, did you find it cathartic writing about a character that really mirrored your own destructive use of cocaine and alcohol within the legal profession?
Well, now the Addicted Lawyer was a memoir. That was me. Yeah, the Ambulance Chaser was a novel.
Got it. The Ambulance Chaser you wrote in 2021, right?
Yes. Now that was a novel, and that kind of mirrored my life. It was it gave me an insight that allowed me to write about things that would put the main character in situations.
Was it cathartic? Was it good for you to write that?
Absolutely. It's always good. It's like telling your story. I go around the United States telling my story. And it's always cathartic, and I always learn something new about myself when I was coming out of my mouth or putting it in writing, right? Putting it on paper. So when I wrote The Addicted Lawyer, that was one of the first books ever to come out about addiction in the legal profession.
Yeah.
Right? So now there are tons of them. But at that time, there was only mine and one other. So that got a lot, and that was very cathartic, because I talked about things and wrote about things that I had really never expressed. Before.
I think that gives you two things. Sorry to cut you off. It gives you cathartic response, but it also gives you some accountability within yourself.
That's right. And I was when I wrote The Addicted Lawyer, I was very careful, because we all have stories, right? The goal in writing the memoir wasn't to hurt people. I had tons of stories with, does the anecdote have a lesson involved? And who is it going to hurt somebody? So it's not that kind of memoir where I do write about trading the Mavericks tickets and all that, but I knew my brother wouldn't really care when I wrote at the time I wrote it.
Listen, at the end of the day, your brother loves you. He's been for you, and he's supportive.
That's right. And so, but there were other things involving marriages and things like that, and I said, wait a minute, okay, there's a story, but I can't hurt. The goal isn't to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
So I found stories that had messages that weren't salacious to the point where somebody was going to be. Now, when you move into the fiction category, where I wrote my first novel, The Ambulance Chaser, which coincidentally when it was released, was the top-selling new release novel of that week.
What?
It got a lot of traction, and I for your readers, if you like that kind of stuff, it's a great book. It mirrors my life a little bit, but I've never been accused of murder like the guy at the ambulance.
Hey, listen, Brian, I'm going to tell you this. You may not have been accused of murder, right? But I have somebody that I know personally that got addicted to cocaine in a very, very big way, ended up getting that paranoia to the point he ended up murdering someone and chopping up the body. So you never know where it might lead. And I've got serious. They serve it 30 years.
Oh, no, yeah. I mean, and I know people, anyone who's been in that life, we all know people who are, I have older friends in that life who are incarcerated, who are dead.
Yeah.
If you've been in the life, that goes hand in hand.
Tell me about the Body Brokers.
The 2024 novel, which will come out in December of this year, is about a character, the same character from The Ambulance Chaser. He finds his girlfriend dead of an overdose, and it draws him into the world of to prove she was actually murdered. He's drawn into the world of shady rehab clinics that are masking as fentanyl distribution centers. So he's drawn into the ground zero of the fentanyl epidemic, trying to prove she was actually murdered.
Interesting. We don't have fentanyl in the UK yet, thank God.
Yeah, we do. It is just terrible here.
Yeah,
in the United States, fentanyl has killed off an entire generation. Is in the process of doing that. And
Brian, listen, I really enjoyed having you. But before we go, I always ask my guests the same question at the end, and that question is, what would you say to somebody who is still in addiction and isn't sure what to do? What would you recommend for them to do?
Figure out who loves you. Who loves you? Ask yourself who loves you, and why you're not. And it may not be a parent. It may be a friend who cares about you. And what is keeping you? What are you projecting out that they're going to say that stops you from asking for help, from getting that support? Because we all need that mutual aid. These people, who love. I mean, somebody loves you. Somebody cares you. What is stopping you? Because we project out. They're busy. They're going to judge me. They have their own problems. So I'm just going to deal with it in silence. I'm just going to internalize. Take that risk. Take that step because somebody loves you and wants to help you.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to be helped and allow yourself to have a wing person.
Yeah, definitely. Brian, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for letting me interview you. And I hope to interview you again when you write the next book, when the next book's written.
Thank you. And can I tell people where they can find my books?
1,000%. Go for it. This is your time. Go.
You can find The Ambulance Chaser at www.authorbriancuban.com. And then The Addicted Lawyer they're both on Amazon or wherever you buy books.
Yeah, so UK, we use Amazon. It's like, go on Amazon, put in Brian Cuban's books, they'll come up, right?
Yeah, you can go on Amazon and just put in Brian Cuban, and all the books I've written here are going to come up. I hope you'll check them out.
Yeah, definitely. Get on it. Get Brian's book, get reading, great inspiration. And it's been a great having you as a guest, Brian. Thank you very much for your time.
I've really enjoyed it, Elliott. Thank you. I hope to talk to you again.
Thank you.